I had nearly given up hope on ever experiencing that burst of pure excitement again, the feeling when you power on a handheld console for the very first time, and let a swirl of familiar icons welcome you into a world of endless discovery. Yet here I am, heart pounding with anticipation, and all because of a device I rescued from a box in my closet. That device is the legendary PlayStation Portable, and rediscovering it after a decade has ignited a grand question. Has Sony forgotten just how magical that little machine once felt? And do we deserve a brand new version that captures that sense of wonder all over again? In this story, we will explore how one portable console, thought to be overshadowed by modern gaming titans, proves the timelessness of thoughtful design and user experience. Is it possible that, despite the meteoric rise of massive gaming PCs and sprawling open-world creations, a compact handheld can still hold a special piece of every gamer's heart? Stick around, because today we delve into the mesmerizing journey of rediscovering the PlayStation Portable, reflecting on its enduring legacy, and pondering whether it might be time for Sony to launch a comeback that could shake the entire gaming community. In the next moments, we will grapple with the reasons the original device became such an unforgettable part of gaming history, the unexpected reminders it offers us today, and the possibility of a resurrection that might surpass everything we once knew. So, what exactly made the PlayStation Portable so special in an era when its rivals were handhelds with simpler screens and more limited capabilities? What feats of technology and design foresight did Sony pack into that slim case? And how did the once pioneering handheld still manage to rekindle excitement so many years later? In this scenario, I will share how I discovered that some classics transcend time, technology trends, and marketing buzzwords. We will also untangle the reasons behind handheld gaming's sudden revival in these last few years, why modern players crave these pick-up-and-play experiences amid a world saturated with blockbuster titles. Finally, we will ask the ultimate question. Will Sony hear the clarion call and deliver a new handheld that builds upon the proud legacy of the PlayStation Portable? Picture this. I am rummaging through the dusty corners of my cupboard one afternoon, searching for a bubble-wrapped figurine I thought I had lost. Instead, I uncover a small black device with thick smudges on its screen and debris around the edges. It is my old PlayStation Portable, an artifact from my teenage years. A wave of nostalgia washes over me in an instant. What else could possibly make me think of simpler days spent dragging the analog nub around the city streets in GTA or sliding effortlessly through menu screens that felt astonishingly advanced for their time? Pulling the device out, I recall how it once acted as a perpetual companion on road trips, plane rides, and lazy summer afternoons spent discovering new stories and new worlds. It was the gift that changed everything for me. Back in those days, I was an 11-year-old kid who had never seen anything quite as shiny or revolutionary as the PlayStation Portable. My eyes widened at the crisp video playback, the relatively large display, and its remarkable ability to connect and play with friends in real time. If you too grew up in that era, you might remember that the freedom it offered felt almost too good to be true, playing console-quality titles wherever you went, popping in a universal media disc, adjusting the volume, and jumping right into a cinematic experience that was once restricted to full-fledged home consoles. It was exhilarating. Over time, like countless others, I graduated to more powerful setups. I built my first custom gaming computer. I tested the latest AAA titles, pushing graphics settings and bragging about frames per second. Meanwhile, the poor PlayStation Portable was swapped out for advanced controllers and next-gen controllers, eventually relegated to that dusty storage box in my closet. There it sat, waiting and waiting for its triumphant second act. On a fateful day, while preparing to move residences, I uncovered it by sheer chance. That is how this entire journey of rediscovery began. It was not all smooth sailing from the outset, mind you. When I tried to power on the device, I realized that the battery was so swollen it could hardly fit in the compartment. I have heard the stories. With older handhelds, batteries often degrade over time, sometimes bulging out or leaking fluid. What a disappointment it would have been to find this gem, only to discover it was unsalvageable. But good fortune smiled upon me. A replacement battery was shockingly easy to find and cost merely $10. Having placed an order and waiting for that prime shipping to arrive, I could practically feel the excitement bubble up again. The moment I swapped in the new battery and held down that power slider, the iconic wave on the screen greeted me with a nostalgic flourish. accompanied by those crisp navigation sounds that signaled the system's readiness. If you can recall that shift from the Nintendo Game Boy Advance SP to the PlayStation Portable, perhaps you can empathize with my childlike glee. Upon booting up, the device's home screen leaped out at me, showcasing icons gliding seamlessly from left to right, bright colors popping across the miniature screen, and no sign of lag anywhere. After all this time, how was it still so snappy? This user interface, in fact, was cutting edge for portable devices when the PlayStation Portable debuted. Even now in the year 2025, it somehow looks fresh. A surprising fact of technology is that many older operating systems start to feel clunky or archaic after a few years, with drab color schemes and unresponsive animations. But the PlayStation Portable's cross-media bar not only ages elegantly, it showcases an innate polish that might make one suspect it was launched just yesterday. The transitions between menus are smooth, the layout is intuitive, and it never once feels like you are wading through menu bloat or fighting unresponsive commands. Of course, if you have followed the gaming world, you might recall the original hype around the console's aesthetics. Reports from around 2010 raved about how sleek it looked next to its contemporaries, how its display was leaps and bounds above certain competitors, and how the stereo speakers were notably impressive for a portable system. Even the analog nub, while small compared to modern standards, gave the impression of having finer control than typical D-pads. All these elements come together to remind us that a well-crafted user experience can stand the test of time. The feeling of pressing those buttons still conjures the word premium. While powering up launched me into a wave of nostalgia, my next big thrill came from reacquiring games I no longer had on physical discs. That was, in fact, a magical aspect of the console. You could back up or download ISO files so that you were not limited to the small library of discs you happen to own. Indeed, to some purists, this practice might seem like a moral gray area. But for many fans, the ability to easily store multiple games on a memory stick is precisely how the PlayStation Portable remains relevant. My personal library spanned everything from a favorite soccer simulation to action titles that tested the system's processing prowess. FIFA, for example, once enthralled me for entire afternoons. To see players running across that little widescreen display, each with a distinct jersey and meticulously rendered animations, felt groundbreaking back in the day. When I booted it up recently, I was amazed at how quickly the match started and how steadily the game performed. Even now, there is rarely a hiccup. Sure, the polygons are fewer compared to present-day titles, but the gameplay remains fluid and thoroughly entertaining. Then, of course, there is Grand Theft Auto, Liberty City Stories, and Chinatown Wars. We are talking about free roaming in a portable environment at a time when that idea felt ambitious. You could drive vehicles, walk around city blocks, and admire the scope of a handheld title that seemed almost impossible years before. My session, more than a decade later, confirmed that the performance is just as I had remembered, responsive, with an impressively large draw distance and enough detail to make your jaw drop. Perhaps the real revelation, though, comes from noticing how robust the hardware still feels. The screen might not be high definition by today's standards, but in terms of sharpness relative to its generation, it remains impressive. The deck is well laid out. The main face buttons, the triggers, the analog nub, they come together with minimal friction. Over the years, I have heard so many stories of drifting analog sticks or unresponsive triggers in other products. Yet on my resurrected unit, the controls remain crisp. It dawned on me that Sony had already nailed key ergonomic features in a time when many portable devices felt more like children's toys than serious gaming machines. Now, let us talk about the glory days of mods. For those who remember, or for those discovering it the first time, the PlayStation Portable was something of a pioneer's dream. Custom firmware, created and refined by dedicated homebrew communities, expanded the console's capabilities dramatically. Chronicles of adventurous gamers turning their handheld into a mini tablet loaded with web browsing, music streaming, emulators, and more abound across the internet. Even if official updates limited some exploits, the community always found ways to push the device. This, in turn, helped spur a vibrant ecosystem of game modifications, third-party applications, and even experimental software. One commonly referenced add-on was the GoCam, which physically attached to the system and opened up new possibilities like taking photos, video calls on Skype, and dabbling in augmented reality mini-games. It felt like a promise of the future at the time, that your handheld might be a one-stop multimedia hub. We take for granted that smartphones have fused all these functionalities into a single device nowadays. But for the era in which it launched, the PlayStation Portable was shockingly forward-thinking. And amid all this talk of nostalgia, let us not forget the intangible dimension, how gaming on a handheld fosters a more immersive and personal experience. The freedom to pick up the device from anywhere, boot up something captivating, and escape into another world is liberating. Perhaps gaming laptops and modern hybrids attempt to capture that feeling, but there is a purity in using a machine tailor-made for gaming. No background processes stealing memory, no oppressive system updates forced upon you mid-session, just the game and your focus. But times have changed drastically, have they not? The modern player has a dizzying array of options, from extremely powerful custom PCs that can handle resource-intensive blockbusters to console experiences that bundle entire digital libraries into the living room. Yet, ironically, we are also seeing a renewed appetite for handhelds. Witness the surge of interest in devices like the Steam Deck and gaming tablets. People are craving the ability to hold the potential of entire game libraries in their hands and yet remain unshackled from the big screen. This begs the question, is it not time for Sony to step back into the ring? We can glance at how the original PlayStation Portable brand made waves for an entire generation of gamers. With refined hardware, new software architecture, and all the lessons learned from the many expansions of the gaming market, a modern Sony handheld might just become an instant hit. Imagine a device that channels the spirit of that cross-media bar, merges the best of past technology with the new era's advanced visuals, and stands out by being both elegant and powerful. With the popularity of the Nintendo Switch and the fresh competition from handheld PCs, the moment seems ripe for a revival to occur. If you are enjoying this deep dive into handheld nostalgia and the possibility of a new portable gaming revolution, let me invite you to consider spreading the excitement. Feel free to show your support by giving a positive nod, like, share, or comment, so that more people can reminisce and dream alongside us. After all, the reinvention of a classic depends as much on the collective voice of the fan base as it does on the business strategies of major corporations. The advantage is clear. A new, robust Sony Portable could easily leverage the existing ecosystem that powers its modern devices. There might even be ways to link it to your home console or your account in the cloud, making it simpler than ever to pick up where you left off. Perhaps cross-save features with future blockbusters, or letting you stream content wherever you go, are the natural evolutions of a concept that started with the PlayStation Portable. Soon, the best of both worlds, past and present, could merge into a single device that reminds us all why we fell in love with Sony's portable machine in the first place. Yet, there are also challenges, and they make for a fascinating conversation. First, a handheld must remain cost-effective yet powerful. Then there is the question of synergy. How does a new portable fit into the offerings of the brand's home consoles? Finally, we must also reflect on the competition. The Switch brand has soared to staggering heights. The Steam Deck has introduced many players to the joys of a handheld version of their massive PC libraries. And smaller companies continue to chase the dream of the ultimate portable. Where would a new Sony device stand in this lineup? Part of the allure of the original PlayStation Portable was that it had access to some incredible exclusive titles. It bridged the gap between a gaming console and a gadget that could even mirror some smartphone features, like Skype or an internet browser, in a time when that felt fresh. This bridging might be more sophisticated today, but the underlying principle remains. If Sony invests resources and talent into a new PlayStation Portable, it ought to deliver a compelling value proposition that celebrates a robust library of updated classics, new exclusives, and a fluid user experience that sets it apart. Returning to my rediscovered console, I easily lost an entire evening to re-experiencing iconic titles. Despite the obvious difference in graphical fidelity compared to modern home consoles, each game reminded me that immersion depends on so many different factors: storytelling, mechanics, audio design, fluid gameplay, and player agency. A simpler game can feel modern if those fundamentals remain strong, even if it debuted years or decades ago. There is also the intangible sense of ownership. That device in your hands is intrinsically yours, loaded with your favorite titles, custom themes, and to some extent your personal gaming history. The memory of completing that tricky boss or beating a friend in a local multiplayer match lingers in the console itself. And with how gracefully the hardware has aged, it all feels as close to timeless as a piece of tech can. Sometimes, we only realize the rare staying power of a device once we take it out of its decade-long slumber and find it still humming along. I suspect that is why a new wave of fans might gather around any impending Sony handheld. If the brand harnesses that sense of continuity, the idea that they are giving you a powerful, flexible, and forward-thinking gadget that still conjures the soul of the original PlayStation Portable, who among us could resist? We long for that sense of connectedness, that carefree spirit of handheld exploration, combined with the raw computing muscle that modern gamers demand. The enthralling idea is that Sony could make it happen. It is equally important for me to point out that nostalgia alone is never enough to sustain a product. We see many revivals, from classic movie franchises to retro-styled hardware, fail because they bank solely on superficial throwbacks. If Sony simply reissues the original console with minimal updates, it might disappoint a modern audience craving performance to match the latest generation. But if they take the kernel of inspiration from that timeless UI, that sense of user-friendliness, the ability to link up with friends wirelessly and combine them with an advanced chipset, gorgeous high-resolution display, and robust developer support, then we may have a device that stands out in a saturated market. Think about it. With the current leaps in mobile processors, a new Sony Portable could handle demanding games at performance levels once unimaginable. Crisp 2000K visuals, or beyond, on a streamlined handheld with excellent battery life might be feasible. Add new features like integrated voice chat, advanced haptic feedback, expanded memory, and an online marketplace built from the ground up for handheld play, and the stage is set for a major comeback. The key is to identify those intangible elements that made the PlayStation Portable such a success story and infuse them back into a new product rather than bury them under flashy but soulless features. Now, if you find yourself nodding along, remembering your own cherished handheld memories, or wondering if the future indeed holds a new Sony handheld, this is the perfect time to show your excitement. Feel free to share your enthusiasm with others who might have similarly forgotten the joy of exploring beloved games on a portable screen. These stories of rediscovery are what keep the gaming community so vibrant and open to fresh possibilities. Perhaps, with enough voices calling for a revival, we can spark a conversation that resonates far beyond our personal circles. It is humbling to stand here, playing the same console from so many years ago. It does not feel outdated in the way one might expect from an older piece of technology. Instead, it stands as a testament to meaningful design and creative ambition. The best gifts, after all, are those that continue to bring joy long after the novelty has faded. My resurrected PlayStation Portable reminds me that the best gaming experiences are not simply about polygons and textures, but about a harmony of polished technology, enticing software, and intangible magic that invites players into a story. Meanwhile, a swirl of speculation about whether Sony will once again dare to bet on a new handheld continues to haunt message boards and rumor mills. Some believe that top executives only have eyes on mainstream console successes, or that they might fear competition from well-established rivals in the handheld space. Others say the brand's strength, combined with the proper marketing, could lead them to dominate the portable scene anew. It might feel like an uphill battle, but a strong sense of hope pervades. If the original PlayStation Portable could impress me as an 11-year-old child, then surely the next iteration could blow all of us away if done correctly. As I see it, the resurrection of my old console stands for something bigger. It illustrates that a well-executed design rarely loses its charm. If Sony could catch lightning in a bottle once, why not again? With that question lingering in the air, and a swirl of excitement that makes me want to revisit my library of old games every night, I say, the stage is set. We gamers are waiting. The success of modern handhelds is not a fluke. The evolution of an entire genre is at stake. At the end of my day of rediscovery, after playing an hour of soccer matches and completing a quick mission in a beloved open-world classic, I find myself wishing for a definitive new handheld that captures the elegance of the old system while propelling us into the future. My revived PlayStation Portable sits on my desk, still brimming with the potential for more fun. Even as I type this, I cannot stop picturing the possibilities in a next-generation device. One that might harness streaming tech, cross-save features, achievements, easy online multiplayer, and more. That vision sparks joy in my mind. And so, dear listeners and readers, let us keep this conversation alive. We hold in our hands, literally, the living proof that sometimes the simplest solutions, those that revolve around user-friendliness, comfortable form factors, and a well-curated gaming library, can outlast entire cycles of rapid innovation. The legacy of the PlayStation Portable is testament to what is possible when a company invests heart and soul into building something new and thrilling. Will Sony rekindle our imaginations once more? Only time will tell, but if you ask me, I am ready to get in line the minute they announce it.